Hey guys, it's Rauraidh from G2G Coaching, and today I'm going to do a video on when to use your core and when to just let the movement happen, not focus on your core as much. Learning how to use bracing as a dial, not as an on or off switch. Okay guys, in this video I'm just going to talk through how to use your core and use the core stability or bracing as a dial. Show you some examples of where that might fit in depending on the style of exercise you're doing. So we've had some videos this month from Donnie, Jenny and Jamie talking about core stability exercises and how they might be done and how to use them. But what we want to understand is that we don't necessarily need to brace everything as hard as possible when we're doing any exercise or in everyday life. Okay, so it's useful at the start when you're learning to train to get an idea of like, this is how to engage my core and brace. And that usually have to do that like quite hard, like maximally. Like in a plank, you're trying to brace as hard as you can. But then once you get through training, your maximum level goes up. So you don't need to do that maximum level with other exercises that become a bit easier. An example of this, where bracing really hard is probably not the best option, is say you're doing a kettlebell deadlift and you've done lots of deadlifting. And this is an 8 kilo kettlebell. Okay, so if I'm trying to think of bracing as hard as I can when I do this kettlebell, it's actually probably going to limit my performance on this set because I'm probably going to get out of breath quite fast, right? So if I'm bracing every single rep as hard as I can, as you can probably tell, I'm already out of breath. And with a load like that, it's probably going to make the set actually way more inefficient, okay? Versus when bracing your core really hard is important, is when you're lifting like a heavier one. We've got an example here of a 48 kilo kettlebell. So in this one, I do need to brace harder. Like I've got to do it a little bit more, okay? So when I'm doing this one, it's important that I brace, use my core stability before I lift, because the exercise, it demands it, okay? So by bracing, I'm probably going to make my performance more efficient, okay? Whereas if I did this 8 kilo and I didn't think about bracing as much, I'd get less out of breath and probably improve my performance. So when you're doing higher rep sets or exercises that you're using a lighter load, the idea we're trying to get across here is bracing enough for the activity. Don't brace maximally every single time. It's probably going to be at a detriment overall, okay? Now you may need to focus your attention on certain aspects, like Jenny showed with the anti-rotation, anti-flexion and anti-lateral flexion work, okay, or anti-extension, whichever you want to use it. Those, you might have to focus on a certain aspect of the movement to do that, but it's still going to be in terms of a intensity level that's relative to the task you're about to do. So another example that we can show this is when we're doing more endurance-based exercises, okay? So we've got our ski erg here. I'm just going to give you a silly example. If I try and keep my core braced the whole time when I do this, you'll hopefully see how ridiculous it would be. So if I'm trying to, say, avoid any sort of extension or anti-extension or flexion through my spine, it's going to be really hard. Very hard to do. I hope that looks silly. I was trying to make it look silly. Whereas to do more efficient work here and get more out of the goal of the exercise, which for this is muscular endurance, I'm trying to do more work over time. It's probably more beneficial to actually move a little bit more freely and actually probably move a little bit more with some extension, some rib cage flaring happening, to then more flexion at the same time, okay? So something a bit more like this, okay? Because it makes the movement a lot more fluid, a lot more free, and that's something that's going to be more beneficial for that specific task at hand. Okay guys, so another example where we don't really want to think about bracing our core maximally when we're doing exercise is more power-based exercises. So we're going to use a med ball throw to talk about this. So I'm going to give you a silly example of trying to keep my core fully engaged as I do this exercise. Okay, this is actually harder than it looks to actually do this wrong, but Okay, so probably looks awkward and horrible, and it's probably way less efficient and less powerful. So the goal of the exercise there is trying to create power in a rotational way, which we definitely need to use our core, but it's not in a maximal way. It's more in a reflexive way. Okay, so if I'm doing the actual throw correctly, it's going to be a lot more of rotation involving my whole body. I'm still using it, but I don't have to think about it activating it maximally. So I hope that helps you guys think about using your midsection in different ways, using it more as a dial versus an on and off switch in your training.